The Iranian Revolution of 1979 was a seismic event that reshaped Iran's political and social landscape. It ushered in an Islamic republic, replacing the monarchy of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The revolution was fueled by a confluence of factors. Chief among them, a deep and pervasive dissatisfaction with the Shah's regime. Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who ascended to the Peacock Throne in 1941, had long been a polarizing figure. His supporters lauded him as a modernizing force, pointing to his ambitious economic programs and efforts to enhance Iran's international standing. His detractors, however, saw him as an autocratic ruler, intolerant of dissent and overly aligned with the West, particularly the United States. The Shah's ambitious modernization program, known as the White Revolution, while credited with some economic progress, also generated social and economic disparities. Rapid industrialization led to the displacement of rural populations and fueled the growth of urban slums. Meanwhile, the Shah's close ties with the US and his lavish lifestyle, in stark contrast to the poverty faced by many Iranians, alienated large segments of society. Furthermore, the Shah's secret police, the Savak, was notorious for its brutal suppression of political opposition. Freedom of speech was severely curtailed, and any form of dissent was met with swift and often brutal reprisals. Over time, resentment against the Shah's regime grew, encompassing a diverse cross-section of Iranian society. The discontent simmering beneath the surface of Iranian society in the 1970s was not confined to any one group or ideology. It transcended social and economic strata, uniting a diverse and often fractious opposition in their shared animosity towards the Shah's rule. Religious leaders who wielded considerable influence among the devoutly Muslim populace were alienated by the Shah's secularizing policies and his suppression of Islamic institutions. Intellectuals and students chafed under the regime's censorship and restrictions on academic freedom. The burgeoning urban working class, many of whom were recent migrants from rural areas, felt marginalized by the Shah's economic policies, which they perceived as favoring the elite and foreign interests. The opposition found a charismatic and uncompromising leader in Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a high-ranking Shia cleric who had been exiled from Iran in 1964 for his outspoken criticism of the Shah. From his exile in Iraq and later France, Khomeini relentlessly denounced the Shah's regime as illegitimate and called for the establishment of an Islamic republic. Khomeini's message, disseminated through smuggled cassette tapes and pamphlets, resonated deeply with a population yearning for both political and religious change. His ideology, which combined Islamic principles with populist rhetoric, provided a powerful rallying cry for a nation desperate for an alternative to the Shah's autocratic rule. The year 1978 witnessed a dramatic escalation of protests against the Shah's regime. What began as sporadic demonstrations, fueled by economic grievances and demands for greater political freedom, quickly transformed into a nationwide uprising. The Shah's attempts to quell the unrest with a combination of concessions and brute force proved futile, only serving to further inflame the opposition. The turning point came in January 1979, when the Shah, facing mounting pressure and dwindling support from both within Iran and internationally, fled the country. His departure paved the way for the triumphant return of Ayatollah Khomeini from exile on the 1st of February, 1979. Khomeini's return was met with euphoria by millions of Iranians, who poured onto the streets to welcome him as their savior. Within days of Khomeini's return, the Shah's regime crumbled, and the Islamic Republic of Iran was proclaimed on the 1st of April, 1979, following a referendum in which the majority of Iranians voted in favor of establishing an Islamic government. The revolution had triumphed, ushering in a new era in Iranian history. The nascent Islamic Republic's relationship with the United States, already strained by years of American support for the Shah's regime, deteriorated rapidly in the aftermath of the revolution. The crisis reached its peak on the 4th of November, 1979, when a group of Iranian students calling themselves the Muslim Student Followers of the Imam's Line stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took 52 American diplomats and citizens hostage. The hostage crisis, which lasted for 444 days, had a profound impact on U.S.-Iran relations, marking a point of no return and ushering in an era of mutual hostility and distrust. The United States, outraged by the embassy takeover and the Iranians' refusal to release the hostages, severed diplomatic relations with Iran, imposed economic sanctions, and launched a series of covert operations aimed at securing the hostages' release, including the ill-fated Operation Eagle Claw in April 1980, which ended in disaster. The hostage crisis, which played a significant role in President Jimmy Carter's defeat in the 1980 U.S. presidential election, poisoned U.S.-Iran relations for decades to come. It also reinforced the anti-American sentiment that had been brewing in Iran since the 1953 coup, which had been orchestrated by the CIA and British intelligence to overthrow the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh and reinstate the Shah to power. Section 5. The Islamic Republic, a New Order. The Islamic Republic of Iran, established in the aftermath of the 1979 revolution, represented a radical departure from the Shah's secular monarchy. At its core was the principle of, or the guardianship of the Islamic jurist, which vested supreme political and religious authority in a leading Islamic cleric, Ayatollah Khomeini. Under the new constitution, ratified in December 1979, Khomeini assumed the role of supreme leader, a position endowed with vast powers, including control over the military, the judiciary, and the media. A president elected by popular vote headed the executive branch, but the supreme leader retained ultimate authority, with the power to dismiss the president and veto legislation. The establishment of the Islamic Republic led to profound changes in Iranian society. Islamic law, or Sharia, became the basis for the legal system, resulting in the imposition of strict Islamic dress codes for women, the banning of alcohol and Western music, and the segregation of the sexes in public spaces. Section 6. Social reforms and societal contradictions. Despite the theocratic nature of the new regime and its emphasis on Islamic values, the Islamic Republic also implemented some surprising social reforms, particularly in the realm of transgender rights. Ayatollah Khomeini, in a move that startled many observers, issued a fatwa, or religious decree, recognizing the rights of transgender individuals. This fatwa paved the way for the legal recognition of gender reassignment surgery and the provision of government subsidies for those seeking such procedures. The Islamic Republic also adopted a progressive stance on drug addiction, treating it as a public health issue rather than a criminal one. Drug treatment programs were established across the country, providing rehabilitation services and methadone substitution therapy without the social stigma associated with drug use in many other parts of the world. However, these social reforms existed alongside a much harsher reality for many Iranians, particularly women and religious minorities, who faced discrimination and persecution under the Islamic Republic's interpretation of Islamic law. The regime's human rights record came under intense scrutiny, with widespread condemnation of its use of capital punishment, torture, and arbitrary detention. Section 7. A beleaguered economy under the weight of sanctions. The Iranian economy, already grappling with the challenges of transitioning from a monarchy to an Islamic republic, was dealt a further blow by the imposition of U.S. economic sanctions following the 1979 hostage crisis. These sanctions, which targeted key sectors of the Iranian economy, including oil exports, banking, and trade, had a debilitating impact on Iran's economic growth and development. The Iranian government's economic policies, often characterized by mismanagement, corruption, and a lack of transparency, exacerbated the situation. The combination of sanctions, internal economic mismanagement, and the Iran-Iraq War, which lasted from 1980 to 1988, drained the country's resources and led to a period of economic hardship for many Iranians. High inflation, unemployment, poverty, and shortages of essential goods became endemic, eroding the living standards of the Iranian people. The economic woes facing Iran had a profound impact on Iranian society, fueling resentment against the government and contributing to a sense of disillusionment, particularly among the younger generation who had not experienced the revolution firsthand. Section 8. A yearning for change, public sentiment, and the future. In the decades that followed the revolution, public sentiment in Iran underwent a significant transformation. The revolutionary fervor that had gripped the nation in 1979 gradually dissipated, replaced by a sense of disillusionment. particularly among the younger generation, who had grown up under the Islamic Republic and had little or no memory of the Shah's era. While the Islamic Republic retained the support of a core base, a significant portion of the population, particularly the youth, yearned for greater political and social freedoms, economic opportunities, and an end to Iran's international isolation. The disputed presidential election of 2009, which saw the re-election of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad amid allegations of widespread fraud, sparked the largest protests since the 1979 revolution, with millions of Iranians taking to the streets to demand political reform. The protests, known as the Green Movement, were brutally suppressed by the government, but they highlighted the deep-seated desire for change within Iranian society. The question of who might lead Iran into a new era, should the Islamic Republic falter, remained a subject of intense speculation. Among the names often mentioned was Reza Pahlavi, the son of the late Shah, who had lived in exile since the revolution. Section 9: Iran's regional influence and nuclear ambitions. The Islamic Republic of Iran, despite its international isolation and internal challenges, emerged as a significant regional power in the Middle East, projecting its influence through a combination of soft power, military support for allied groups, and its controversial nuclear program. Iran's regional ambitions were evident in its support for Hezbollah, a Shia militant group and political party based in Lebanon. Hezbollah, founded in the 1980s with Iranian backing, became a formidable force in Lebanon, challenging Israel's military superiority in the south of the country. Hezbollah's military capabilities and its close ties to Iran were a source of concern for both Israel and the United States, who viewed the group as a terrorist organization and a proxy for Iranian influence in the region. Iran's nuclear program, another source of regional and international tension, became a focal point of Iran's foreign policy. While Iran maintained that its nuclear program was for peaceful purposes, such as energy production and medical isotopes, the United States and its allies suspected that Iran was secretly pursuing nuclear weapons capability. The Iranian nuclear issue sparked years of diplomatic efforts, sanctions, and threats of military action, culminating in the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, an agreement between Iran and 6 world powers that placed limits on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. However, the JCPOA's future was thrown into doubt in 2018, when the Trump administration withdrew the United States from the agreement and reimposed sanctions on Iran.